A Sicilian fisherman just found something Rome buried for 2,100 years, and it's still full. This week, off the coast of Mazzara del Velo, the sea gave up a secret it had kept since before Julius Caesar was born. Here's the story no one else is telling you. Close your eyes for just a second. Not really, keep watching, but picture it anyway. It's a warm morning in the 2nd century before the Common Era. Somewhere on the west coast of Italy, a wooden ship groans under its own weight. Its belly is packed, floor to beam, with clay jars, hundreds of them. Each one sealed, each one heavy with wine that some Roman farmer spent years growing, pressing, fermenting, and trusting to the sea. The captain doesn't know your name, he never will. But right now, in this moment we're about to step into, he is about to lose everything. Hold that image, we're coming back to it. Because on Saturday, August 9th, 2026, just days ago as I'm telling you this, a fisherman named Giacomo de Mola was doing what fishermen off the coast of Sicily have done for generations. He was working the water near Mazzara del Velo, watching his scanner the way you or I might glance at a phone. Except his scanner showed him something that shouldn't have been there. A shape. Long. Straight-edged. Structured. Not a reef, not a sandbar. Something built by human hands. He didn't know it yet, but Giacomo de Mola was about to become the last link in a chain that started 21 centuries ago. Here's what he found. 3 miles off the Sicilian coast, sitting in roughly 150 feet of water. A Roman ship, 21 meters long, 6 meters wide, dated by archaeologists to somewhere between the 2nd and 1st century BC. That makes this vessel more than 2,100 years old. And it wasn't empty, it was, and still is, carrying hundreds of amphorae. Clay jars, tall, cylindrical, unmistakably Roman, of a type historians call Dressel 1A, a design so specific to its era that experts can date a shipwreck almost to the decade just by the curve of its neck and the shape of its handles. I want you to sit with that detail for a moment, because it's the kind of thing that sounds small until you understand what it actually means. Every civilization leaves fingerprints. Ours will be plastic and steel and fiber optic cable. Theirs was clay. And the specific clay jar sitting on that seafloor right now, the Dressel 1A, was the shipping container of the Roman Republic. Not decorative, not ceremonial, functional. Built by the thousands in coastal workshops, usually on the sprawling wine estates of wealthy Roman families, filled on site, sealed while the wine was still breathing, and carried down to the water on the backs of enslaved laborers whose names history never bothered to record. A single one of these jars held around 25 liters, and ships like this one weren't carrying a few of them as souvenirs. Some Roman merchant vessels of this exact era were built to carry up to 3,000 amphorae in a single hold, stacked in layers like some ancient, terrifying game of Tetris, played with breakable pottery and human lives riding on the outcome. Now, do the math with me. Even a modest cargo of a few hundred jars, like the one sitting off Mazzara del Velo, represents years of labor. Vineyards planted, grapes grown under a Mediterranean sun that hasn't changed 1 degree in 2,000 years. Wine pressed by hand. Jars thrown on a wheel, fired in a kiln, sealed with pitch to keep the sea out and the wine in. Someone, a landowner, a merchant, maybe a family whose entire fortune rode on this single voyage, loaded this ship and watched it sail away, fully expecting it to arrive somewhere. Rome, maybe, or a colony, or across the water to Gaul, where wealthy Gauls were drinking Roman wine undiluted, using empty amphorae as paving stones just to show off how much of it they could afford. It never arrived. Somewhere along that route, something went wrong. We don't know what. Was it a storm? The kind that could turn the Mediterranean from glass to a grave in under an hour? Was it a structural failure, a ship overloaded and underbuilt, groaning under 3,000 jars of dead weight? Was it something worse? Pirates, a rival, a miscalculation by a captain who thought he knew these waters better than he actually did? Nobody alive will ever know for certain. That's not a gap in the story. That is the story. A ship, a crew, a fortune in wine, and a single unrecorded moment where all of it simply stopped. And then, nothing. For 2,100 years, nothing. While Rome rose and conquered half the known world, while Rome fell, while the Vandals came through Sicily, and then the Byzantines, and then the Arabs, and then the Normans. While Columbus sailed an ocean these Roman sailors never knew existed. While 2 world wars tore through the same Mediterranean waters this ship was resting beneath. While Giacomo da Mola's own grandfather, and his grandfather's grandfather, cast their nets from the very same port, never knowing what was lying quietly in the dark 3 miles out, exactly where they'd fished their whole lives. That is the part of this story that should stop you cold. It's not that ancient history exists somewhere far away, in a museum behind glass. It's that it is still down there, right now, as you're listening to this. Waiting. And here's something else, something almost nobody covering this story this week has bothered to mention. This is not the first time the sea off Mazzara del Velo has done this. Rewind with me to March of 1998. A fishing boat working out of that same small Sicilian port pulled up its nets from 500 meters down and found itself hauling in something that made no sense. A bronze torso, worn smooth by 2,000 years of current, missing its arms, missing a leg, but with a face that still looked almost alive. It turned out to be one of the most important Greek bronzes ever recovered from the sea, the dancing satyr of Mazzara del Velo, a masterwork possibly carved as early as the 4th century BC, hailed by archaeologists as the most important discovery in Italian waters since the Rius bronzes stunned the world in 1972. That statue now stands in a converted church in the middle of town, on a base engineered to survive an earthquake, its eyes inlaid with alabaster so they seem to follow you. So understand what you're actually looking at here. This isn't a random coincidence, a single lucky net. This is a pattern. This is a town whose fishermen have, twice now, in one lifetime, reached down into the same stretch of water and pulled up pieces of a world that vanished before Rome ever crowned an emperor. What else is down there? What else is that sea still holding on to, 3 miles out, in the dark, waiting for someone with a scanner and a little bit of luck? And here's something that might surprise you. Whoever eventually drank this wine, if it ever made landfall, almost certainly didn't drink it the way you would. Romans rarely drank wine straight. They cut it, usually about 1 part wine to 2 parts water, and treated anyone who drank it undiluted the way we might treat someone doing shots of straight vodka at 10 in the morning. Barbaric, uncivilized. It was the Gauls, ironically, who drank Roman wine full strength, and Roman writers looked down their noses at them for it, even while shipping them hundreds of thousands of Amphorae a year to feed the habit. Somewhere in that contradiction is a very human truth. We love to sell people the very things we claim to disapprove of. So somewhere on this ship, sealed, dark, silent for over 2,000 years, is a taste that no living person has experienced. A specific vineyard, a specific harvest, a specific year under a specific sun that a Roman farmer would have described to you in loving detail if you'd asked him, the same way a modern vintner might tell you about a particular slope, a particular frost, a particular perfect week of ripening. That flavor existed once, fully formed, complete, and then it was sealed inside clay and handed over to the dark. Chemists may never fully recover it, but knowing it's down there, intact, waiting, untouched by 2,000 years of human history happening just above it, is its own kind of haunting. Back to the present. Back to Giacomo de Mola, standing on his boat, staring at a shape on a screen that he somehow understood, in his gut, before the archaeologists ever confirmed it. He reported it. Regional authorities moved fast, and when Italy's Minister of Culture, Alessandro Giuli, was briefed on what had been found, he didn't downplay it. He called it, and I'm using his exact words, one of the most important underwater archaeological discoveries of recent years. Think about what it takes for a government official to say that. Italy is, without exaggeration, the single richest archaeological nation on Earth. Its ministers see extraordinary finds cross their desks constantly: Etruscan tombs, Pompeian frescoes, Roman villas turning up under highway construction. For a wine shipwreck off Sicily to earn that kind of language tells you exactly how rare, how intact, and how significant this find really is. And de Mola himself put it even more simply, in the way that only the person who actually found something ever can. He called it the most incredible discovery of his life. Think about that phrase for a second. Not of the year, not of my career, of his life. This is a man who has spent decades on that water, who has seen storms and sunrises and everything in between, and the single thing that outranks all of it is the moment he realized he was one of the first human beings in nearly 2,000 years to lay eyes on that ship. Here's what happens next, and here's why you should keep paying attention to this story in the weeks and months ahead. Right now, this wreck has only been given an initial inspection. The Amphorae are visible, scattered across the sea floor, along with at least 2 lead anchor stocks and another unidentified lead object resting nearby, possibly ship's rigging, possibly cargo, possibly something archaeologists haven't even categorized yet. What hasn't happened yet is the deep work. No residue analysis has been done inside those jars to confirm, molecule by molecule, whether this was truly wine or oil or something else Roman merchants moved across these waters. No one has yet determined how much of the ship's wooden hull survived, buried and protected by centuries of sediment. No one has traced exactly where this vessel launched from, or where it was trying to go, or drawn a confirmed line on a map showing the voyage that never finished. Which means, right now, in this exact moment, this story is unfinished. You are not watching a settled piece of history. You are watching the opening chapter of one live, as it's being written by archaeologists who are probably standing on a boat above that wreck site as you hear this. I want you to think about something before we close this out. Every single jar sitting on that seafloor was made by someone's hands, filled by someone's hands, loaded by someone's hands, under a Sicilian sun that felt exactly the way it feels today. Somebody stood on a dock 2,100 years ago and watched that ship pull away, fully expecting to see it again, to unload the jars, to collect the payment, to pour that exact wine into a cup and drink it. That moment of ordinary hope is sealed inside every one of those amphorae, right along with whatever liquid is still inside them. And then the sea took it. Quietly, completely, for 21 centuries, until a man named Giacomo de Mola looked at a screen on an otherwise ordinary Saturday, and the past decided it was finally ready to be found. That's the story the headlines gave you in 2 paragraphs this week. This is the version nobody else told you. And if a stretch of water off one small Sicilian town has already given up a 2,000-year-old bronze god and a 2,000-year-old shipment of wine, in the same lifetime, off the same docks, the only honest question left is, what is that sea still hiding? And who's going to be standing there, watching a screen, the next time it decides to let go? If stories like this one, the ones history almost let slip away, are the kind of thing that pulls you in, you already know what to do next.